Hello there, people of the internet. I'm sure I've made content on this particular topic before, but I haven't made an actual video devoted to this until now. So let's go ahead and talk about sporterized military surplus firearms and when you should get around to converting those into their original military style counterparts. So the thing with sporterized military surplus rifles, back before they were known as collectibles, they were oftentimes, incredibly cheap rifles. And I mean, we saw incredibly cheap rifles from like 2012 and earlier. And after 2012, we had a bunch of panic buying. People started realizing how good they actually were. And then we went to, them being more collectible than something that you would just butcher for a cheap hunting rifle or cheap recreational rifle or something like that. That being said, these are definitely much more expensive than they used to be. So if you want to help me make content on stuff that is really quite pricey, check out Patreon and Utreon in the description below. Well, links to them in the description below. That will definitely help me make more content more often. But I have a couple of military surplus firearms in my collection that have been sporterized, and there's a reason why I don't unsporterize them. So oftentimes people will tell me, they're going to get something that's been sporterized and then just unsporterize it, and then they'll have a cheaper unsporterized rifle than what they would get if they just bought the rifle full out. Back in the day, that probably could have worked out, but nowadays it's not going to happen. And there's still people out there saying that they're going to make that happen, and I'm just kind of scratching my head and I'm like, all right, where are you getting your sporterized Milsurps? Because I want in on that. So there's a couple of times where it would be a good idea and a couple of times where it would not be a good idea. There's no like one all be all solution for any sort of situation. So this is my Car 98 1944 production, and originally this was sporterized. Well, whenever I picked it up sporterized, I paid like $180 for it or something like that down at my local gun store. And this was post 2012 whenever I bought this thing, and I was like, hell yeah, give me that. Well, then I decided to go ahead and unsporterize it because these rifles unsporterized, in proper configuration, are actually quite valuable. So my unsporterized $180 Car 98 became much more valuable since I, put it inside of a appropriate stock. Now a Car 98 stock, if you're going to get an actual legitimate Car 98 stock, one that's in decent shape is going to be around $250. So even then I've got, let's see, $250, $350, about $430 or so in this rifle. So with that amount of money, this rifle is, easily worth twice that. So unsporterizing this particular rifle definitely put me on top. Now I have an unsporterized Car 98 in this configuration, and I am out, only about half the money of what it is actually worth by today's standards of filming in 2022. Of course, if I were to have paid more for the sporterized Car 98, oftentimes if something is sporterized, they'll only charge like a minute amount of money less than what it's actually worth. Let's say you're going to get a Car 98 for just a round number, $1,000. Let's say bare baseline for a Car 98 in the market right now is $1,000, right? So if you're going to get a sporterized one, maybe you'll pay like $700 for it. Well, now you have your sporterized Car 98, and then you're going to do another $250 for a stock and whatnot, and then you'll have to do another $100 or so for barrel bands and accessories and butt plate and nose cap and all of the things that go along with getting a stock and converting a sporterized military rifle. So now you're paying about, I don't know, round number $1,200 for a $1,000 rifle. And granted, you paid less money for the sporterized rifle and you had a usable rifle, but unsporterizing it, you spend more money in the actual and long run on the rifle than you normally would. So I guess it all depends on how cheap it is that you get the sporterized rifle for, because sometimes there's really good deals and sometimes there's not. That being said, even if you do get a really good deal, some rifles just are not worth sporterizing or unsporterizing. This right here is a Vito Mauser. This is Old Sketchy. If you guys have seen, if you've been around on the channel for any real length of time, you've seen Old Sketchy, and you know what she is about. She's a tore up, cracked up old Vito Mauser, originally in 308, but I put her back in her 7mm configuration. There's a lot of history behind these rifles. These were originally 7mm, and the Spanish, wanting to get some use out of their old school bolt action rifles whenever 7.62 NATO was adopted, they converted these rifles to 7.62 set me, although they can handle 7.62 NATO, but I wanted a 7mm Mauser. So what I did was I actually got a barreled action, and since I already had Old Sketchy, and basically the barreled action of the 7mm Oviedo would drop right into my 308 rifle right here, and I could, you know, use my 7mm 308 converted rifle, my conversion of a conversion. I'm not quite sure what I would call this, if it would be a conversion of a conversion or restored to original. But I got the 7mm Mauser unconverted barrel, the barrel that was not converted to 308. I got that, and I just kind of plopped it right into my rifle Old Sketchy. And in this particular case, I did some unsporterization. Well, I guess it's unconversion at that point. But I did a little bit of unconverting with not a lot of money to get myself a 7mm Mauser, since I already had all of the parts and features. Now, if this is the case with, say, Car 98, if you had a Car 98 stock already, and you spend, you know, $700 on a sporterized Car 98, you can just throw that bad boy right into the stock, and now you have $700 and a stock that you already had, so you get yourself a Car 98 for less money than you normally would have spent. Of course, this Oviedo Mauser is not worth very much, and getting myself an unsporterized Oviedo Mauser stock to throw onto this 7mm Mauser barreled action, it just would not be worth it. Like, looking around, it's like $125, $150 for one of these, for like a stock that's in decent shape, that's been unsporterized and is original. But I can go out and get the whole entire Oviedo rifle here for less than 200 bucks. Hell, I think Old Sketchy here I paid like $25 for a while back. And then the barreled receiver, 7mm Mauser barreled receiver, I think I paid like $30 or something like that for this thing. And now I can fire 7mm Mauser through my 308 rifle Oviedo Mauser. And I'm not out a lot of money, and I get this pretty sweet little rifle. And I have a 7mm. Badoosh. Actually, I'm gonna go grab that brass, it's reloadable. But I could, if I really felt like it, I could convert this back to its original military configuration by getting an appropriate stock for it. I've already got it in the 7mm caliber, so it's no longer a 308 caliber. But there's just no point to it, because then I'd be spending more money on this thing than the rifle is actually worth. That poor steel. However, something like my Car 98 right here, I deemed to definitely been worth unconverting and putting back into its original military configuration, because it's not only an extremely collectible and valuable rifle, but I also got the bare bones sporterized rifle for not a lot of money at all. So now I have quite the rifle for about half the cost that I actually paid for it. Oof. Oh, that Turkish ammo, that kicks like a absolute beast. And it is corrosive, so I will have to clean this rifle after shooting. Ow. My goodness, this is incredible. Oof. Jesus. Turkish ammo out of a little carbine length rifle like this is quite the powerhouse. Now that said, just because it's an 8mm Mauser does not necessarily it would mean, or it would be worth unsporterizing. For example, this right here is a Turkish Mauser, also chambered in 8mm Mauser with a hot barrel on it, because I was just shooting the ever-living hell out of it. But this right here is a Turkish Mauser, and also an 8mm. But if one of these was sporterized, these are a lot less money than the Car 98, just because they are less desirable. The Turkish Mausers, these typically run around $350 to $400 as of December of 2022, depending on the model that you're getting. Like, for example, this is an older model, 93. We got cuts on the receiver, and we got, you know, the side receiver block. And this is a 93 action, so it's not as strong as the 98. I mean, it's still a very strong action. It's a Mauser action. But these right here are just not as valuable. Just Turkish stuff in general tends to not be as valuable, especially in comparison to World War II German stuff. For one of these right here, I'd be able to get like 3, potentially even 4 of these right here. So if this was sporterized, you know, let's say I pick up a sporterized one of these for $250, $300. Well, there's no way I'm going to be able to find an original military style configured stock and barrel bands and nose cap and, you know, sling swivels, everything that I need to put it together to put it back in its original configuration. There's no way I'd be able to find all of that for less than the amount of money that I'd be paying for just a whole rifle. I got the hiccups, guys, I'm sorry. But I could pick up the whole entire complete rifle probably for less money than a sporterized rifle plus an unconfiguration job done to that rifle. That's what I'm gonna say there. So my $400 rifle would become, you know, costing me $650, $700 if I were to, you know, take it out of its sporterized configuration. So it all depends on the price you pay and the value of the rifle. Like, there's a lot of sporterized Carcanos on the market right now, but Carcanos are not very valuable. So why would you go spend $400, $500, $600 on converting a sporterized rifle when you could literally pick up a Carcano for like $250, $300? I mean, you get yourself basically at that point 2 already, you know, factory military style configured rifles for the price of 1 single unsporterized rifle. It just doesn't make sense from a monetary standpoint. Now, if you want to do it because that's just what you enjoy doing, then by all means, you go ahead and you do whatever it is you're wanting to do. Unsporterize that rifle and get us a, you know, another surplus rifle onto the market that is not bastardized and molested. If you, despite the fact that it would not be cost effective, if you want to get yourself something like this and convert it back to its original configuration, even though Spanish rifles are not very sought after, and even though Avita Mausers in particular are not something that people pay a lot of money for, if you want to do it, by all means, free country, you go ahead and you do it. But sometimes it is worth it, and if you get yourself a dirt cheap Car 98 and you're like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and throw a stock on this thing and make it more valuable than the amount of money I paid for it, then by all means you can go ahead and do that as well. Interesting concepts, but I'm sure somebody's going to yell at me for something in the comments below. Maybe they have some sort of insight that I completely glanced over, or maybe they just don't like the way that I talk. Maybe they don't like the way I pronounce stuff. So that's always a fun time. Thanks for watching, folks. Appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share, description below, link to all sorts of stuff. Go ahead and go check that out. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day, and I guess I'll see you in the next video. I'm going to go ahead and keep shooting and keep making videos because I'm having myself a good time. And I will see you guys on the next round. Since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garen. Shame that bolt action shotguns aren't more mainstream.